You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Hey Ramblers! Today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Horror Ramblings podcast. You know the show, it's about all things horror, with your charming hosts, Lester and Steven. Let's be honest, guys, you love us. And fun fact, I don't know if you knew this or not, chainsaws were originally invented to assist in childcare. Talk about a fucked up thing, but that is quite wonderful. Speaking of childcare and birth and all that fun stuff, that's something we need to do one day. Just completely talk about all of the fucked up stuff that they've invented for all of this shit, because it is insanity.
I'm sure we can
Anyways,
do a deep dive.
You know, there's a comedian that I love, Craig Ferguson, and he talks about his parents always used to say that things were so much better back in their day, and he said, no, he said, think of modern medicine. Things definitely are not better back in the past. He said, you know, back in medieval times, they thought that a cure for blindness was rubbing dog shit in people's eyes.
Yeah, they didn't quite have it all figured out.
We got some cool costumes, though, you know.
We did.
I mean, the plague doctors and everything. Let's be real. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. For anybody out there listening, I am in a very weird mood today. I guess I woke up on the right side of the bed. I don't know. Maybe I got out of the coffin the right way. I'm not really sure what it is, but
It's all good.
I'm in a good mood today, and I don't know. I want to talk about violence and horror and all those things that most people like to talk about when they're in a good mood.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
You know.
The usual.
You know, the usual. I'm gonna start out with something real quick. Something that I didn't think I was gonna be excited about. I kind of feel like it's just a play-by-play remake, a rehashing of it, but I've seen some trailers for the Strangers film that's coming out, which is sort of like a revamp of the franchise. Movies that I actually enjoy. I didn't like the first one when I had originally seen it. It wasn't like I hated it, it was to me. But I watched it a few years later, and I appreciated it so much more. And it's got my favorite line, probably from... I'd probably put it in like my top 10 list of favorite horror movie lines. And it's when the three of the killers are in the house and, you know, she's like, why are you doing this to us? And the answer's so simple. It's because you were home.
Yeah, it was always
and
a messed up line.
Yes, I love that. It's just, I agree with what Wes Craven used to say. Keep it simple. You know, keep the mystery. You don't have to over-explain things, because when you over-explain things, it ruins the story. That's why I love The Strangers. And then in the second one, I mean, it's no wonder they didn't set up another one after that. The kids got even with all the killers. I mean, come on, you know?
Yeah.
But they're rehashing it, and I'm actually kind of excited about it because I feel like you know what you're walking into. It's not going to be the most groundbreaking film you've ever seen in your life, but at the same time, I'm for it because you know it's going to at least be an interesting film to watch, because these killers have no motive, and I hope that they don't decide to give them a motive and everything in this movie, because that's what was so appealing about the first one. Right. They had no motive. They were just there. They were just psychotic. And sometimes you just need a good psycho.
I remember that was what I think I remember hearing from the one review that I did actually read about it. They said it's thrilling but familiar. Almost like, we've seen this before, we've done this, but it's still kind of fun in its own right, even though you're aware of the story being played out.
Well, and let's be real. I'm going to put it this way. Some horror films are like comfort food. Mm-hmm. You can love mac and cheese, and you can go get mac and cheese at different restaurants, and it might be different, a little different every time, but it's still mac and cheese. Horror films are the same way. Yes, the story's slightly different, the killer's slightly different, but if it's similar to a story that you love to see how it plays out, then it's something that you love. Speaking of familiar things, on a kind of negative note, I thought this was interesting. I believe Blumhouse announced not too long ago they were going to. They were talking about, we're picking up another franchise. We're gonna completely revamp another franchise. Blair Witch Project.
Yeah, I do remember hearing that.
And the cast and the original director and all of them, they're not too thrilled about it, from what my understanding is. And I'm gonna put it this way: found footage did exist before the Blair Witch Project came out. There were some found footage films. We talked about Faces of Death. That's sort of like they try to make those seem like they're kind of like a found footage, we spliced found footage with reenactment, and, they did the whole spiel with it.
Right.
It's whatever. But Blair Witch Project took found footage, and I feel like that is the film that made it mainstream. Because at that time, nothing like that had come out.
Yeah.
And, it was so realistic at the time that it came out that, family members of the people in the film called the police because they thought that their family members were really missing. And I'm sorry, but you can't get that same effect today. You can't.
No.
It's already been done, first off. Secondly, with all of the technology and everything that we have now, people are going to figure out that it's just some found footage fake pretend thing. And they're going to find that out very quickly. Mm-hmm. And that was the appeal. I'll be honest, the first time I watched the original Blair Witch, I'm like, this is a snooze fest. I don't mean any offense by that. I love what they did, but I watched that film when I was younger, and I didn't have the attention span. That's really what it is.
No, I get that.
I've gone back and watched it, and after going back and watching it, yes, I do appreciate it. And, I hope that Blumhouse does right by the original cast and the original crew and everything that did this film. I hope that they do right by them, because I don't know, it always just it irritates me when films get remade and the original cast doesn't care for it, or they're not involved to some capacity.
Sure.
I think that's why I'm so standoffish with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which, let's be real, it's not a good remake. It's not.
No, it's not. We actually got into a discussion about that the other day. It was just odd how it got brought up, and I think it had something to do with what we're going to be talking about later. So we'll get into it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, because I need to. Who did you have a discussion about Nightmare on Elm Street with?
Katrina, matter of fact.
Oh, I have to hear this then.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, we'll talk about it in the show. But man, do you have any news? Because I could ramble on. There's like a few things that I've seen out that have just like, I don't know. I have opinions on some things, and you'll probably bring some things up that I'm probably going to have some opinions on.
Yeah, I was kind of fishing around to see if I could find some news bits, because I know that there's been a few things that have come up that we haven't really discussed, and I was trying to narrow it down to, I guess, what would be the most fun to talk about, or what would be the most interesting to talk about. There was a wide swath of trailers that came out. I'm probably going to touch on those, but I'm going to start with this one first because I just stumbled upon this. If you're a fan of the Hatchet series, they are releasing a complete steelbook collection, 5 discs. I don't know if there's a release date yet. I think it says June. That's all it says. And this is coming from Dark Sky Selects. So I think we've discussed this here on the show before. This rise in steelbooks.
Yeah.
I'm honestly starting to think this is a marketing ploy to get a little bit of extra money out of people. Because look, it's a cool thing. I mean, it's a nice case, but I don't need the steelbook. If you can give me the cheaper plastic option, I will take it. because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter to me if it's in a steel case or a plastic case. And
Well, and it irks me a little bit with the whole steelbook thing, because this is a 5-disc collection here, and they've probably got all kinds of really cool behind the scenes stuff, all kinds of stuff that they're probably not going to put out somewhere else. And that is what irritates me the most. Like, I understand the steelbook craze. I think the other day I was at the store, and I happened to notice a bunch of steelbooks out on a display rack, and you know, they do some custom art. They do some images that you've never really seen before on them. And, you know, with the steelbook, sometimes they're, I don't want to say layered, but that's like the best way I can put it. There's like a 3D thing to them.
Yeah.
So they are appealing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they're cool for that. But you're also paying like $5-10 more for the steelbook.
And the other thing that seems to come along with it, too, is a limited supply. So it's almost like they are in high demand, but then they'll only produce so many. I mean, that's the issue that I had getting Fright Night on 4K, is because they only offered it in Steelbook. So I finally found, I think it was a distributor that was doing it at a decent price, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'll throw some bucks at that. And when I got it, the disc is, you can watch it, but there's a problem with the disc, like halfway through the movie, where it kind of jars and skips, and then once you get past that one little minute, it goes back. But now I can't do anything with it because I don't know who I can return that to. So now I'm stuck with this disc, and I can't just buy a new one because it's hard to find.
Right.
So what the hell am I supposed to do? I've got this bum disc, and it really pissed me off because I was so looking forward to having that on 4K, and my disc is shit. You know, it's defective. So that's the kind of stuff that bothers me. And it's actually one of the reasons I've started to kind of point myself towards Shout, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, the actual distributors versus going to Amazon or something like that. Because I think,
Right.
what was it, the Friday the 13th collection? I think Shout did that on Blu-ray.
Yes.
And there were issues with 3 of the discs when you watch the movies. And they sent out an email, and they were like, hey, if you notice that your discs are wrong, you know, check this. And if they are, go to this website, order yours free of charge. You know, you have all your information, what have you. But yeah, it's our mistake, our fuck up, but we're going to send you replacements that fix it all. I mean, How many other distributors are going to do that? I mean, that was pretty awesome. So,
You know, I also think, and maybe this is just me, I think if you're putting the money into buying a collection, especially if it's like, if they re-release something in HD or, you know, top of the line HD, like 4K, if let's say you get Friday the 13th, the whole collection, and they do like a 4K release, they fix it all up, you buy the 4K release, you're spending all that money on that. I'm sorry, but I feel like if you're getting the physical copies and you're buying them and you're putting all that money into them, I think they should give you digital downloads too.
I agree. I mean, honestly, I've kind of been doing that on my own, where if I see a deal on Vudu, well, I can't call it Vudu anymore. It's Fandango at Home, because we had to change this name to something more mouth-worthy. Fucking hell. Why would you change that? It was so simple. Voodoo. Fandango at Home. Voodoo. Anyway, that's my gripe for the day. But I do like to have kind of a, like, I have some movies on my Vudu account, my digital library, that I don't have on my shelf, and vice versa. There are some I have on my shelf I do not have on my digital, but I would love to have both. That way, I always have my collection with me should I be off somewhere. Because, you know, you go traveling or something like that, most people, whether it be in a hotel or a B&B, they typically have like Rokus or Fire Sticks or whatever just layered up, and you can just sign into your account and Bob's your uncle, you know. So I just think that's neat to kind of have. If I want to have my movies with me, I do. And that's why I do like having the digital library accessible when I need it. But I know that some people are not fond of it. I do prefer having, like, if I'm going to watch it and I'm home and I've got my 4K and my home theater, that's what I want to do. You know,
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous to be like, nah, I don't want to get up and go to the shelf and put it in. That's going to be the best quality I could ever ask for, is right there. That's how I'm going to watch my damn movie. You know? And anyway, I'm going off. So trailers ahoy! Beep beep beep. We got a new trailer for In a Violent Nature, that movie that seems to be focused on the killer. And I don't know about you, dude, but I'm just so fucking psyched for this movie. I don't know what it is.
I am floored.
Like just the fact that we're already kind of getting like early reviews in the I guess because it's went on the festival circuit or whatever, but just hearing and seeing those quotes and then already the vibe from the movie. I mean, I'm so stoked, man.
I even heard an interesting concept that makes me appreciate this film already, and it's all the way back from like the first trailer that aired. We follow the killer the whole time. And then there's a scene at the end in the very first trailer where the perspective changes from the killer to this girl. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are saying that what they think is happening is she's going to be the final girl, and she's going to be the one that ends up killing the killer. Okay. And I kind of find that to be like an interesting concept, switching the perspectives. Yeah. Because I feel like if we're going to follow the killer through the whole film, which I think is awesome, I don't think it's necessarily going to change, I don't think it's going to take away the mystery or anything. You might find out a little bit about the killer. Maybe his actions will be justified a little bit. I mean, you never know. But if we do switch over to the final girl, I think that's going to throw a lot of people off. They're going to be like, what the hell is happening now? But I am super psyched for this film. I'm glad they did something from a different perspective. A few years ago, I always seem to get like random ideas that pop into my brain. But a few years ago, I thought to myself, it'd be cool to like follow the killer I didn't think for a whole movie, but just follow their actions for just a minute or two. Mm-hmm. But to turn that into a whole film and then to get the reviews that they've gotten, yeah, this is going to be phenomenal. And I don't care what anybody says, it's going to be.
I think that's somebody who has a very clear understanding of how that would work. Like, really went through the gamut in their head saying, well, if we just follow the killer and the killer's silent and all that, it's not going to be all that interesting, yada, yada. But how could we make it interesting? How could we make it to where it could work, where you just follow it? It's very much like how they did with the New Empire, the Godzilla Kong movie. Not to say that we follow them exclusively throughout the entire movie, but there is more focus on them than the human characters. Yeah. So it feels like, we're actually getting to see the adventures from their side for a change and not just showing up when there's a fight to be had. That's cool. They were trying to push in that direction. It's like, let's just stay right here because they're the most interesting. No, there's no dialogue, but you can follow what's going on. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist.
Right. And even with In a Violent Nature, I've read some reviews of it. The only like kind of critique I've heard is that it is a little bit of a slow burn in the beginning. But I also appreciate that because take Friday the 13th, for example. When you first start watching Friday the 13th, you see some kills, but then there's like a gap and you see all the drama between the kids. So seeing what the killer is doing while all of that crap's playing out, I think is going to be interesting. And, I hope there's a scene, and I'm not saying this just to be this guy, I hope there's a scene where where the killer is just sort of stalking some kids and there's some horny teenagers doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Mm-hmm. Because it would be hilarious to see that from the killer's point of view. And it would be kind of funny. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It'd be kind of funny if the killer just kind of like shook his head no, just like, oh, man. I know, it's a horror movie, but a little comedy is not a bad thing. But, I appreciate, too, how they follow. I love the angle that they follow. They follow his hands. Yeah. And when he has a weapon, it focuses on that. There's just something about that because I feel like a killer's weapon is an extension of who they are as characters. Because
each slasher has kind of their own unique blade, if you think about it.
Well, and, if, in all honesty, if I was playing like a guessing game with somebody and they were like, they said, the category's horror movies, and somebody was like, machete. Oh, Jason. Mm-hmm. Knife glove. Oh, Freddy. Kitchen knife. Michael Myers, chainsaw. There's always something. And like you said, they all have their own unique weapon. And it's almost like their weapons have become as famous as they are.
Sure.
So the fact that we are following this killer and you see just bare hands for a while, and then you see him with weapons and everything, I appreciate that because I feel like in a weird sense we're getting to know the killer to a degree.
Sure.
And I think through the film it's going to play out. We're going to learn why the killer is doing the things that he's doing. And I'm okay with that because I feel like they'll keep it just mysterious enough to where we don't need a huge explanation. I know there's also a scene too where he's like in the water and he has like a mask on, comes up out of the water. Like those are things people don't think about. The killer hiding in the water, or the killer, how the killer's able to catch up with the kids when they're running, and this, that, and the other. Like seeing that all from the killer's perspective, yeah, I am floored for this. I think it's going to be great. I'm trying not to jump on the hype train because I don't want to hear, I had read an article somewhere where someone had supposedly thrown up during a scene in the movie because it was really extreme. And I'm not going to read too much into that because I don't want to be let down. We've talked about this on the show too. You get this mental image in your mind of how the film is going to be because you've heard all these things, and then the next thing you know, it's not that. So I'm trying to just read reviews where they're not like, oh, it was so gory and blah 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 blah. I'm not trying to read that. I'm just trying to read it's a great film because it follows this angle. And I think if I can do that, I can go in with the mindset of I don't know what to expect, but I know we're going to follow the killer, which is interesting. So
yeah, I hope it's good. I mean, I don't know. I'm not getting that vibe, and I feel like a lot of the times, don't want to say it's 100%, but if I get a good vibe from a movie, I'm probably gonna enjoy it. If I'm kind of getting this, I don't know, awkward standoffish vibe, then I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm hoping that gut feeling is accurate.
And I'll be honest too. I'm just gonna say this. I hate to be this guy, but I'm gonna say this. If this film does really well, I do think that this is a concept you could do with some other films. You could follow some different points of view in films, but don't overdo it. Don't put it into the ground because it feels like that's going to happen.
Yeah, it will, because that's what always happens. Once something gets popular, the studios jump on board and say, "We got to do that too." You don't have to.
I mean, I think it would be interesting to see, and I know they've kind of done it in movies, but it would be kind of cool to see like a werewolf movie that follows the person who's the wolf, but also shows them when they're in their wolf form. Because I look at it this way, and I think this would be an interesting concept. You film first person from the werewolf's point of view, but the person is still in there, but they have no control over their actions. So you can hear like a mental argument inside this person. Imagine ripping your loved ones to shreds, and you're aware that you're doing it, but you can't stop it.
Be something intense.
That would make for some really intense cinema. Just saying.
Sure.
Which I guess sort of fits in with a concept that you and I have talked about before. A project that we're working on. We're not exactly at that point in that project, but that is something that that character can do. So.
Sure.
I don't know. I just don't just take the same idea and milk it. If other studios are going to do it, please keep it creative and original, because I think if they are able to do that, I think it could be something really good.
Sure, yeah.
So, anyways, more trailers.
What was that other trailer? I was trying to find it as we were sitting here chit-chatting. Seems like it slipped away from me, this son of a bitch. Well, you know what? All right, I'll go down the list because there's a list here. So short little thing. I'd say by the time this comes out, yeah, it'll be all right. So the week of Memorial Day weekend, or that last week of the month, the first Omen is going to be hitting digital and Hulu on May 30th. So
it's going to be on Hulu.
Yeah, so if you've got a Hulu subscription, May 30th, it'll be on Hulu. So I'm kind of looking forward to it because we heard the reviews. They seem to be positive. I haven't heard a lot of chatter about it since, but I'm fine with that. If I heard it's good, then that's all I need to hear. This is a little late news, but I still want to kind of bring it up because she was iconic in her own right. Was Susan Bacalini, I think is her last name, how you pronounce it. She was, what's her name? She was the girl who got eaten by the shark in Jaws at the beginning, and I'm trying to remember her goddamn name.
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank.
It's like I should know. As many times as I've seen that movie, I should remember. And it's like it's Chrissy. Ah, there we go. Damn it. Finally came back. But yeah, she passed away. And I didn't really look into, I'm going to assume natural causes or something like that. I don't really feel like it matters how she passed. But she was 77. I had an opportunity to meet her one time, and I squandered it. Because I was like, well, what am I going to say? Oh, you were great how you died in the movie. You know, it just, I didn't know what to say, and I was just like, I'm just going to be an idiot if I go up and...
I enjoyed watching you swim.
But to be fair, and I think anybody who's seen the movie can attest to this, her performance sells the shit out of like, if that scene had not worked as well as it did, I don't think the rest of the movie would have worked, if you follow me. You know, not to say that it all hinged on her, but not seeing the shark, seeing that whole interaction and just the intensity that goes with it, I mean, it really just kind of goes up your spine.
Oh, it sets the groundwork for the whole feel of the film, I think.
Exactly. So if that had not worked, then the rest of the movie, the dominoes just wouldn't fall proper. So I really give her a lot of credit for just selling the shit out of that. And I'm sure that the rig they had her on didn't make it all that hard to act. But point being, she gave it her all. She sells the shit out of it, really sets the tone for the movie going forward. And she's a legend for that alone, I think.
Yeah.
So, sad news. I hate it. So, thoughts and well wishes to her family and all that jazz. I know I'm not very good with the death thing. It's one of those things I don't want to talk about, you know?
I get it.
Yeah, just... Anyway, let's see. What else we got here? There was a trailer for Long Legs, which is the new movie with Nicolas Cage. I don't know if you saw this trailer or not. Very... I don't know what to expect from it. It was a very odd trailer. The way they would kind of do the text on the screen and you just hear the sounds, it just cuts and it's setting a tone, so I'm interested, but it was just very bizarre. I wasn't sure how to take it.
He was just in another movie too. Nick Cage was some kind of creature feature, and I cannot think of the name of it.
Damn it, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
but apparently it's pretty good too. I don't know, Nick. I know your stance on Nick Cage. Sometimes he's a little too much Nick Cage.
Well, that was another conversation we had, because while we're on the subject, I'll just throw this in here. He got cast as Spider-Man. I don't know if you knew this or not.
Spider-Man Noir, yeah.
Yeah, live action, not the voice. And I know we've been there already, but now he's going to get to do it in full acting mode. And when I was sharing that information with Katrina, she was just like, God damn it, are we going to have to see him? And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, his face. She's like, I can take his voice, but his face. And I was like, probably. I'm sure they'll do plenty of, hey, I'm Spider-Man. Look, I'm just going to go investigate or whatever.
You know, I will say this. And when they write the part for him specifically for films, I think it works. Like Renfield, he was great as Dracula. Loved him as Dracula. A movie that you still need to watch, and I will constantly remind you that you need to watch, Mom and Dad. He is fantastic in that because there's parts where he's over the top, but he's supposed to be. So it works really well for him.
Yeah.
And that movie's also just great because, I mean, Lance Henriksen's in it too. So let's be real. And I can't think of her name. It's the girl that played, I feel awful, I can never remember her name. The girl that played Hellboy's love interest in the Ron Perlman Hellboys. Thank you. She plays Nick Cage's wife.
Okay.
In it. And long story short, these signals go out all over the place that make parents kill their children.
And I think I remember hearing that plot thread.
It's insane. And the Lance Henriksen part's probably my favorite part. They've Nick Cage and his wife, they've got the kids cornered. They're about to off the kids, and there's a knock at the door. And Nick Cage is like, who the fuck is that? His wife looks at him and she goes, honey, your parents, dinner. And he's like, oh yeah. Well, they don't think about the fact that they're trying to kill their kids because it's just... So they open the door, and as soon as they open the door, Lance Henriksen has this huge knife and he's trying to fucking stab Nick Cage.
Okay.
And
you're starting to sell me on this idea.
the whole fight just ensues, and I mean, it's violent, it's it's gory, it's nuts. And I mean, you would talk about Nick Cage being fucking insane. This one is definitely it. I mean, he beats the shit out of his daughter's boyfriend, and he's like laughing and smiling about it the whole time. Like, do yourself a favor. It's not that long. If you have like part of an afternoon or something where you can just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna pop it in and watch it. It's still on Hulu. I enjoyed the shit out of it. Is it the best movie ever? No, but it's one of those movies that you kind of have a good time watching it.
Okay.
So
okay.
I will say that until I'm blue in the face, probably. I was going to tell you something else. There's another movie with Nick Cage in it, and I cannot think of the name. It's a newer movie, too, and it's gotten good reviews. It's...
Is it that Dream Scenario?
Dream Scenario, thank you. I've heard good things about it, but I have not watched it yet.
Same.
And there was a picture of him going around, and there was an article that said, could Nick Cage be the next Freddy Krueger? And it was him holding, he had this thing on his hand from the movie. And I love Nick Cage, but as soon as I read that article, I said it out loud. I was like, hell no. Hell no. Like, I like Nick Cage for Nick Cage. I like when he does certain things, but him as Freddy.
Can you all right, so here I've already imagined
I'm coming for you.
No, there's that scene. What is it? It was Tina. She's like, "Oh my God!" And he's like, "This is God."
I could see
Think
it.
about it. Think about it.
He'd hack off his whole hand though, knowing Nick Cage. Oh God. But yeah, I mean, when they write roles for him, when they write them a certain way, I think it works. It's just like that. I think it's called like Willy's Wonderland or whatever, where he fights the animatronics. I actually I find it entertaining just because he's this psychotic guy. He doesn't really talk in it hardly at all. I think he maybe talks toward the end of it, but he beats the shit out of these animatronics. And then there's a scene where him and one of the teenagers that's in there, they're getting ready to take on one of the animatronics, and then his watch goes off and it's time for his break. So he throws her the weapon. He just kind of nods to her and he walks off, and he takes his break. And he's drinking soda and he's playing the pinball machine while she's trying not to die. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. Nick Cage is one of those, like, you love him and you hate him actors. It just depends on what he's doing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Oh, man. Anyways, I'm just picturing Nick Cage as Spider-Man. And, yeah. But as you were saying.
I don't even remember what we were talking about with that story. I think we were just we kind of threw out something and it just got down on Nicolas Cage and it fell apart. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll move on. Since you brought up Five Nights at Freddy's or Willy's Wonderland,
yeah,
there is another video game kind of in the same vein called Poppy Playtime. And,
yes, it's getting a movie.
Yep, Legendary got their hands on it, so see how that goes. I don't know much about it. I know that it's a pretty popular game, I guess, all over platforms, but I've never played it, so I can't.
The characters are really cool too. I will say that. Like my son, like whenever we go to the fair, they have like plushies of Poppy from Poppy's Playtime, and he's this real tall, like blue looking. He's real goofy looking, but then he opens his mouth when he goes demonic mode, and he's got just sharp teeth all throughout, and he chases you in it. I mean, it's a typical like survival type game, but no, I don't know. I think it would be a cool movie. I wish that they would just understand that the kids that have played these games, they're a little bit older. Maybe more so with Five Nights at Freddy's than with Poppy Playtime, but give us an R-rated movie. Come on. Just make it happen.
I mean, maybe they'll take note of Five Nights at Freddy's and what it did and be like, well, they did this. We could go this route.
I still just, I wish they would just do like director's cuts. If you're going to release the PG-13 so that the kids can go see it in the theater, cool. And then when you go to sell it at home, be like, hey, there is another version on the home version.
Yeah.
Do that. Give us horror fans a little bit more gore. Come on.
I remember the other trailer that I wanted to shout out, which was called, for a movie called Killer Body Count that's coming to Tubi. It's an original slasher over there. I guess the guy who did I'm assuming it's the remake of Slumber Party Massacre that they had. Didn't they do, wasn't that on their platform?
I think so.
Because I feel like there was, yeah. I think it was, they had that remake on their platform. Kind of like with Terror Train, because I remember that was another original they had.
Yeah.
So this actually looked pretty interesting just from what I saw. I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it or not. The killer kind of has this kind of devilish mask, I guess. It's like red with horns up in the front, and it doesn't kind of look like the devil all the way, but kind of has devilish features.
Yeah.
Kind of wearing a cloak or whatever. But I mean, just what I saw of it, I haven't, I think it's actually already out, or it will be by the time this is out.
It'll be out, yeah.
No, actually it's out already. So
okay.
It came out yesterday from when we were recording. So, oh God, people got in behind the curtains. They figured out when we were recording.
You know, though, I've been hearing some good things coming from Tubi lately. I know that one movie that I had mentioned, people have been talking about, I think it's called Low Lifes. Mm-hmm. It's on Tubi too, and it's a Tubi original, and apparently it's really good.
I remembered something about this trailer as you were sitting there talking. It hit me. I remember when I got to the end of this trailer, I was like, ha, 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 fuck you. And I have to explain why.
Okay.
Because the story, if you don't know, if you haven't seen the trailer for it, this is the synopsis of the movie. Mistaken for a sex addict by her devout father, Cammie is sent to an isolated rehab center, but when a killer begins to hunt the teens, Cammie realizes that her survival and her independence are intertwined in ways she could never imagine. So the concept itself is like you have all these depraved teens locked up in this rehab center. You know, all the vices that kids in these movies shouldn't be doing. And then now the killer has them in one spot. It's like, easy pickings. Very cool concept. But then there was a shot at the end, like the very last clip of the trailer, had two kids walking up to a rotary phone and being like, what is this? How are we supposed to use this? How does it work? I don't know. I'm not old. And I was like, you fucking millennials.
You assholes.
Fuck you. Or Gen Zers or whatever the hell they're called.
Speaking of like horror movie tropes, because you just said, the kid, the killer's got all the kids that are suffering from all of these, things in one place. Have you ever heard of a movie called Cherry Falls?
It rings a bell, but I don't think I've seen it.
So
the name does.
It's about a killer in a town. The town's called Cherry Falls, which is kind of funny because one of the terms for losing your virginity as a woman is getting your cherry popped. Mm-hmm. But Cherry Falls, the killer in this movie only targets virgins. So the whole point of the movie is some of these kids are trying to get laid so that the killer won't kill them. It's actually a pretty good movie.
It's a clever twist on the trope, too.
I believe Brittany Murphy's in it, if I remember right.
Okay.
I think it was one of her first movies. The killer's pretty cool. It's a bitch to find, though. I can't find it hardly anywhere. And I mean, it's been a while since I've looked for it, but if you happen to find it, give it a watch. Maybe that's one of those ones we should just talk about. Maybe we should just do a movie, we should do an episode where we talk about movies that go against the tropes, because that would be kind of cool. Because there's a handful of them.
For sure. Speaking of shit like that being hard to find, and I know this isn't really horror related, but I've noticed it the last couple of days. I'm getting kind of pissed. So there was the Disney Movie Club since I guess Disney doesn't want to touch physical media anymore, they were shutting down their exclusive buy all our movies here, their movie club or whatever, where they force you. I don't know if you were ever a part of that or looked into it, but when you start, they force you to buy at least 6 movies up front, and then you're committed up to a certain amount. But once you have committed to that, then you can go, you're not obligated to buy anymore. But when you join, you are obligated to pay for X amount of movies. Really kind of fucked up. Strong arming you. So anyway, I pretty much signed up for it at one point because I was like, well, get a spot to have exclusive things like that. I know that I'll at least buy Marvel movies and maybe a few others here and then. Of course, when they got the Fox library, that was easy enough.
Right.
But the Star Wars movies, I had never I think the very first one I ever got on 4K was the last one, The Rise of Skywalker. And I thought, well, I'll have to get them eventually in 4K, but it'll take some time, whatever. So I got each one of them kind of individually here and there. So it was like I got The Last Jedi for free through another one of their clubs, and then just started picking up the others where I could find them at affordable prices, right? Well, as soon as they started talking about, well, we're shuttering everything down, so get it while you can, I thought I would take advantage because they were, cutting these deals, and one of the deals they had is like you buy one movie out of your lot for full price, but everything else is 60% off. And I thought, okay, let me see how I can play this game here. And I started trying to figure out what could I get, what would I like to get. I don't want to just buy willy-nilly. It's like, what would I actually like to have added to my collection, yada, yada. So I figured it all out. But for whatever reason, when it came to Star Wars, because I thought, well, this would be an opportune time to get all the Star Wars movies, get them all cheap. For some reason, I couldn't find any of the original three. Like the original Star Wars. Like their 4K versions were out of stock almost immediately. And I was like, well, that's disappointing. I'll go look over on Amazon. Go over on Amazon. They had all three, but their prices were jacked up. Like $30, $40 for a 4K. And I understand it's 4K, but I'm a cheapskate sometimes, especially when it comes to my physical stuff. And I was like, I've seen it cheaper than that. Fuck you. I'm not paying that. But now, like I added them to my wish list so I could kind of keep an eye on them. Now they're out of stock. I go looking everywhere else. I went to Walmart's website. They only had Return of the Jedi, but everything else was out of stock. And I was like, what is going on here? Why is Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back suddenly hard to find on 4K? You can find it on Blu-ray all day, but 4K, forget it. And I was getting really, really frustrated by this. So I have all but two on 4K now, and it's arguably the two best. And I'm just kind of pissed because I was like, what the fuck is this, man? Now, I'm not saying that it'll never come to 4K or anything like that, but like what is going on? That's all I want to know. Like, why can I not find these very popular movies that have always been available are now not available? I'm so confused by it all.
Well, in a few years, everybody's going to be using the 8-track looking tapes like off of Fallout. So,
oh yeah,
we're going to have to get rid of all of our 4K stuff.
Go on to the Fallout, baby. Sorry. Where were we? No. Oh yeah. So apparently we're getting a sequel. Don't know why this feels necessary since we already had a sequel to this movie. We're getting another I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. I don't know what more you can do with the concept, but okay, go for it.
The first one was good for what it was, but
I'm not knocking it. It's just
then we get
it gets yeah. There's something else about it. It just kind of gets a little.
But didn't they do a series on like Amazon or something, and then it got canceled?
I feel like it did. No, yeah, it was like a very brief.
Like I don't even think they aired the whole first season.
I honestly feel like you're right. I don't remember.
I can't remember, but I thought there were like 2 episodes in, and I know like there were some people like shocked because of all the nudity in it or whatever. And then you heard that it was canceled, and you were like, well, that didn't take long.
Yeah, it's such a blink and you miss it kind of thing. Yeah, I feel like I remember that, but I couldn't tell you shit about it.
You know what irritates me is they did the Scream series, the Scream TV series.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. Like, I really enjoyed the Scream series. And then they switched networks. I think MTV picked it up, because I think it was somewhere else or something. And then somebody else picked it up, some other network picked it up, and they completely changed it around, and then it got canceled. And I hate that, because at the end of the season, before the final season, you get a few twists. You find out a few things about some characters that you thought were legitimately good people, turned out to be bad people. And I hate that we'll never get to see that story get flushed out the rest of the way. I don't know if you ever watched the TV series of Scream. And
it was something I was willing to give a shot, and I just never got around to it. But it was kind of, I think I've added it to whatever platform it was to get around to it. But
it's, like I said, I really enjoyed it. And they, like, people were irritated because they changed what the mask looked like for it, but I didn't even really care about that. Like, I don't know, for it being a TV show, it was pretty damn violent, and all of the twists and stuff in it. Yeah, it's worth a watch, and I've still not watched the very last season, but they switched stuff up, and it's not me hating on the fact that they switched stuff up. It's just they should have closed out some other things first.
Sure, I get that. Let's see. There's a Terminator series coming, or an anime series. Terminator Zero kind of looks cool if you're into the anime kind of thing. Kind of has a slasher vibe going for it. I think
what I heard about it, it's got like a horror vibe to it, which yeah, I mean, I don't know. Arnold is responsible for all of the Terminator stuff. Like, he was smart about that. Anytime anybody even thinks about Terminator, like, we'll probably get a bill from him.
Yeah.
But I think he's realizing, like, I'm getting a little too old to play the Terminator. And yes, they wrote it in that he aged somehow in the Terminator movies, but switching over to another media to tell the story is probably a smart idea.
I mean, to be fair, I'm going to give Terminator Revelation. Is that the fourth one? Is that right?
I think so.
Whatever the one where they actually go into the future. So, look, if you're creating... There was that CG Arnold in that movie that was supposed to be like the original T-800 or whatever the fucking model he is. And people are just like, it looks fake. I was like, yeah, but that's kind of the point, isn't it? It's synthetic. It's not real. It looks a little off. I think that actually works in that scene's favor. That it looks like him, but it's weird looking. Yeah, it's not him. It's not a human. It's a fucking robot.
Speaking of movies that I don't know why they're getting sequels and that used CG, look at Tron Legacy.
Yeah.
Clue, he was CG. It was a CG Jeff Bridges, and it looked off. But I kind of look at it in the same vein that you're talking. It works.
Wasn't he a computer program?
He was.
Or something? Yeah,
he was a computerized copy of Jeff Bridges' original character. So
yeah, it works.
Yeah, like, I thought it added to the creep factor of it all.
Exactly.
Which apparently they're making a sequel, and apparently Jeff Bridges is coming back. Which
I did hear people kind of being like, "What?"
I'm going to say this. I went to the theater to see Tron Legacy. I didn't mind it. I thought it was an okay film. Again, it wasn't like the best thing ever, but I thought it was good for what it was.
I don't know. People want to... It's little things like that. Change your perspective on certain aspects, and trust me, you'll be a lot less mad about whatever the fuck you're arguing about. I mean, just those little things like that. Your perspective of what is actually going on. How you perceive bad special effects. You're looking at it wrong. And I understand that, yeah, it might not look great, but at the same time, think about the context of the scene.
Look at it this way. I'm going to say this right now. In the 90s, like most kids, I was obsessed with the Power Rangers growing up. When they did their movie finally, you had Grandpa Munster as the bad guy. There's a giant battle, which is what happens. The bad guys always turn into giants, and then they get their Megazord and they fight. Normally, it's people in costumes. They opted for CGI for their final battle. It is terrible looking. But I'm going to tell you something. As a kid watching that, it was the coolest thing ever. And as an adult now, like, not too long ago, I know you and I, like, recently talked about the Power Rangers, like, randomly, like, just a few days ago, or it was, like, maybe even yesterday. But a few days ago, I was talking with another friend of mine about the Power Rangers, and somehow we got to talking about the movie. And he was kind of complaining. He's like, they should have just did the people in the costumes, it still would have looked cool, and blah, 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 blah. And I went back and I watched the, original fight, which is the CGI. And yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. But I can tell you one thing. I'm sitting there watching this as a full-grown adult, and I'm grinning ear to ear, remembering how much I loved this and how cool I thought it was back then.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to me that it wasn't, top of the line and everything else. It was just fun to watch. And I think if people just kind of stood back for a minute and went, I should look at this from a different angle, like you're saying, you'll appreciate it a lot more. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, yeah, CGI is bad and it really just takes away from everything. That does happen. So,
sure.
But still, just give it a chance, people.
Being mad about some stupid fucking movie is just not worth my time, you know? I'm just like, whatever. Doesn't matter. Speaking of stupid fucking movies, Peter Pan, Neverland Nightmare. I don't know. It might be great. I'm just kidding. Just this Pooniverse thing is just, it's killing me, man. I don't understand it. But here's the story. There was a first look, and I'm assuming this picture I'm looking at here is supposed to be Peter Pan. It looks like some disfigured guy.
Yeah.
There's nothing about him that screams Peter Pan at all. So the story, according to the website in which this picture came, says it follows Wendy Darling as she strikes out in an attempt to rescue her brother Michael from the, quote, clutches of the evil Peter Pan. Along the way, she meets Tinkerbell, who is in this twisted version of the story, taking heroin, convinced that it's pixie dust. So,
Jesus.
Cool.
You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Give us a story about Captain Hook, make Peter Pan the villain, and make it come out into the light that Peter Pan was killing the Lost Boys before they grew up, and that Captain Hook and all of his crew are lost boys who escaped Peter. And create a story where Captain Hook trusted Peter Pan, and he's bitter, and he wants to stop Peter from hurting other kids. Like, give us that
Sounds
story.
good to me.
You could make that a drama. You could make that a valid film, and I feel like it would do well. It doesn't even have to be a horror film. Just make that movie, because it would be great, and make it to where Peter has convinced Wendy and her brother and everybody that he is this good guy, and then let it all come out into the open. Let Wendy be the one to fight Peter or something like that. Like, Captain Hook dies saving Wendy. You know, like, come on, people. It's out there. Stop giving us weird horror remakes and go from a different angle. Come on.
I mean, it sounds good to me. I'd watch it.
Ah.
The last thing I want to bring up, just because, why not? Why not? This just seems so, like, I haven't talked about this in a long time, and I thought it would be fun just to do some voices for it as well since we're here. Guess what is changing? You know, go down the cereal aisle, and our favorite monster friends are coming back. You know, our favorite friends, Count Chocula and Frankenberry and Bullberry and all these other people. Like Carmela Creeper. Who the fuck is that? When did we add her? Who is she?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, last Halloween, and that was my... We're walking with the kids, and I see all of our familiar favorites, and then I see her, and I go, who the fuck is that?
Again, we're not judging.
It's not me judging, not me being sexist or anything, but I'm like, you're just throwing this new character out there with no context. Like, I've seen no commercials. I've seen nothing.
What happened to Fruit Brute? Where did he go, huh? We're just going to toss him into the bin now? And just have...
She killed him, and she took his cereal box.
And she's a snake, like what is it? Her cereal looks green. What is the flavor profile here? Like apple and caramel or something? I don't know. Point being, they're coming back to the thing, the cereal aisle, because we do this limited edition now, which it blew my mind when I found that out. You know, I thought these were a year-round cereal, and I'm like, no, it's only around October and whatever. Blew my fucking mind when I realized that they were doing that. But they're giving them friends now. Like, they're not all friends. They have pets. Are you excited for this? We've got Beanie the Bat, who looks like Frankenberry, but with wings and little stick legs. And we have Scratch, who I guess is Carmela's friend, and he's a snake. Then we have Igor, who looks like Count Chocula, but a spider. And then Meowberry. Meowberry? That's clever, because meow, cat, dead.
Are they gonna sell little plushies in the cereal boxes at least?
No, they're marshmallows. So they're joining with the rest of the other cereal things. So look for your frightful friends this weekend, blah.
Now, did they ever have a mummy?
Yes, they did. There was a damn it, I can't remember that. Yes, there was a mummy cereal. Shit.
Because that makes sense to me.
See, if they were talking about doing that, why couldn't the mummy be The mummy could be a mummy.
And then instead of like the Carmilla or whatever, why don't we have like a creature from the Black Lagoon?
Yummy Mummy. See, yeah, that was smart. Why not do an adaptation of that? I mean, just a gill woman or something.
Yeah. Instead of just a snake that doesn't scream to me like, oh, this is a play on the Universal monsters, because that's what I think when I see that cereal automatically.
Yeah. But Yummy Mummy, that was
Yummy
the
Mummy.
other.
Okay.
And it was fruity, just like the Fruit Brute. So I guess they were trying to figure out, what do we need to do? And
got it.
I think Fruit Brute disappeared and then Yummy Mummy, but people then realized that, or General Mills realized that kids don't give a shit about fruity cereal, or there's enough of them. They want chocolate and
it's
blueberries.
I mean, and Yummy Mummy doesn't. I mean, that's such a basic term. It could be any kind of cereal. Bring him back. Bring Yummy Mummy back, and give him a cat, because the Egyptians like cats.
But see, now what they're doing is they're doing an Avengers-style cereal called Monsters Frightful Friends, and they just pretty much dump all the cereal into one box. I mean, that's what it literally looks like. It's just like we said, just mix that shit up. So I could buy each box of cereal and then just do the same damn thing.
Do it on your own if you want, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I know it's more money spent, but then I would have 4 times as many boxes of Monsters Frightful Friends. I mean, come on, think about it. Think about it. I just got a cup here, cup there. Ta-da. Got the same goddamn cereal. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about this other than I just wanted to bring up the General Mills monster cereals. And I was also trying, you know what? I know he's not listening, but I've been trying. John Brennan, I don't know if you saw this or not, he sent out a tweet asking if people can do Bela Lugosi impressions and impressions of, oh, God damn it, who's the other one? Boris Karloff. And I thought, yeah, I think I could do that. And I've just gotten so in my head where I'm thinking about it and not doing it that I thought I would just do it here, because I've been playing around with the Hungarian voice of Bela Lugosi, and I'm not quite sure I've got it, because I'm trying not to go too deep into the Dracula of it all. You know what I mean? I'm trying to come back from that, but stick with the Hungarian accent. And it's very difficult, because you want to lean into the vampire. Yes, that's what you do. You say, oh, look at the children of the night, how the beautiful noise they make on music. I don't remember the fucking line. Point being, I was trying to get it and I couldn't do it, and then there it is. So see, now I've got it recorded and I can just be like, here, dude, take it, fuck it.
I hope John's listening, because
I'm sending him that clip so I can at least say, here's my fucking Bela Lugosi that I couldn't do on my own.
I hope he will join us on the show again sometime soon, because I have an idea for a show and I would love to have him on it. So,
well, if I send him that, then I'll toss him an invitation. Maybe we can get him on, see what his schedule's like. And and Boris Karloff, that was another one that I was struggling with, because he's got a very unique voice. First thing that came into my head was The Grinch, because he was narrator. And I thought, well, could you tap into that? But it's so unique, his voice, because he's kind of like here, and he's a little British, but he's not quite British. And he's talking, and he's like, oh, look, I must stop Christmas from coming. And I can't quite tap into it. He's a little more difficult.
It's like he's British, but he's sinister. So there's like this...
Yes, something like
there's like a sinister undertone to it.
But see, if he because I'm assuming the voice he's looking for would be the actual man's voice. And I thought, well, maybe he's just looking for the Frankenstein. So I go, friend, good. I can do that all day. But I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated. But if all he wants me to say is, friend, good, I can do that. So I doubt that's it. But, I'm still practicing. That's the beauty of a voice actor. You got to keep playing with it. You got to keep practicing. I got my mind blown. I don't know. I've been trying to follow a lot of voice actors here lately on TikTok, because they do this thing where it's like, I'm a voice actor. And then they read a line from whatever.
Yep.
And I saw this one, and it was Frank Welker. And if you don't know that name, I promise you know his voice. You have heard him in something, because the man is a voice acting legend. He was talking about how he created the voice for Megatron from the Transformers. Again, not for the movies, the cartoons, people, if you're not familiar with that. So he was talking, and keep in mind, if you don't know Frank Welker, like I say, I guarantee you know his voice. If you've watched any Scooby-Doo cartoon over the last 50 years, he is Fred.
Yeah.
100% every fucking time. I don't think there's outside of movies and anything live action, I feel like he has been Fred in any and every animated adaptation of Scooby-Doo. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like his regular voice. So as he's sitting there narrating how he was trying to figure out Megatron's voice, he's speaking and you hear Fred. And then suddenly it's just like a switch went off. And then now he's Megatron. And I was like, oh shit. And it's just two diametrically different voices, but how he just, I respect that so much. I mean, obviously I can do it too, but it's just funny because these are people who do these things for a living. You are familiar with the voices well enough. No one knows me. I just throw on voices whenever it suits me, and here we are. But they do it on a professional level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I went down a huge rabbit hole, so let's turn to our topic.
I have to say something. I have to say one thing real quick. I've been seeing those TikTok videos too, and there is one of Jim Cummins who does like Winnie the Pooh and all them. He's doing a line from Tigger saying that the wonderful thing about Tiggers, and he's talking about it. And then they have the guy that does he does the voice of the older guy in the newest Grand Theft Auto video game.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, yeah.
But he repeats the line, and he says something, but he says bitch at the end. And Jim Cummins just loses it. He's laughing his ass off. Because, you wouldn't expect to hear Tigger say that, because, he doesn't say it as Tigger. Mm. Oh, no, it wasn't Tigger. I'm sorry. It was Darkwing Duck. He was going, I am the terror that flaps in the night. Well, then the guy does it as the guy from Grand Theft Auto. He's like, I am the terror that flaps in the night. I'm Darkwing Duck, bitch. And Cummins just loses it. And it is the funniest thing I've ever seen when you get these voice actors together. But
his podcast is called Tuned In. Mm-hmm. If you have not listened to it and you are a fan of voice actors, 100% highly recommend that, because they do that very thing in almost every episode where they'll do like voice swaps. So you get somebody who, I think they had like the guy who's doing Mickey now on there. So he would give a line as one of his characters, and then vice versa, like something Mickey would say or something that like Darkwing or Pooh or somebody like that would say, and then they swap line. Just do it. That alone, man, just them playing that game is hilarious. They even did, I think one of my favorite episodes they did here recently is they kind of had like a quasi Goof Troop reunion, because Jim does Pete, then he had Bill Farmer who does Goofy, and then Rob Paulson who does PJ. So the three of them together just shooting the shit, man. I highly recommend that show if you're a fan of voice acting.
Right. Okay. We have rambled quite a bit.
We have. I'm sorry. There was just a lot of fun things we could talk about.
I've enjoyed the rambling today. I don't know how you took the news that we're going to be talking about today. I was excited about it, but I know this big guy is more in your realm of things that you like. It's not that I don't like him, but I would say out of the two of us, you are the bigger fan.
Right.
The Jason universe? What are we going to call this? Is it the Jason verse? Is it the Voorhees verse?
I'm going to assume they're going to stick with Jason universe. And I did want to talk about this today because I felt like I was going to have a lot to say about it, and I don't feel like it's going to take up a lot of time to talk about it, but I do want to just kind of feel it out, because look, as you said, I'm the Jason superfan here. I've been eagerly awaiting any news of a new show, a movie, anything, because it's been well over a decade since we've actually had something from Jason, and I'm kind of itching for it, I mean, if it never happened again, if there was never any more Jason content, I'd be disappointed, but I'd be fine. I still got all the other 13 movies that are available out there. I feel like I should have been excited as hell about this. You know what I mean? Kind of like when Legendary said, hey, we're creating a monsterverse. So we've got Godzilla, we've got Kong, we've got all these other monsters that you're aware of. That excited the hell out of me, because I was like, finally, yes, we're going to get a Godzilla Kong movie, finally. And now we've gotten 2. Love it. Jason doesn't lend himself in that direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It seems wrong somehow. And I find it really difficult to explain because I guess I've not thought of Jason as a universe. Like, maybe it's the term they're using, Jason Universe, is what is throwing me off. Maybe as they flesh it out or rework it or whatever they're going to do with this, because the concept itself sounds like that this is a title, very much kind of like the Dark Universe thing that Universal did. It's like, we're going to do this big old sprawling thing. I think that's the vibe I'm getting here. It's like, what exactly is your plan? And I guess my concern is that they're going to try and create all this media surrounded by Jason or focused on Jason, and it's going to either fall flat somewhere or it's going to take away something from the character, at least how I'm perceiving it. Because with the announcement of this news, this, in my opinion, feeds into why Brian Fuller left the Peacock series. Because we got that news maybe a week before this dropped. So it was just like, creative differences. You know, Brian Fuller's like, yeah, I'm not involved because they're going in a different direction or they're wanting to do something different. And then suddenly we get this announcement. I was like, oh, okay. That concerns me. You know, like, what was his idea so focused on, like what he wanted to do with that Crystal Lake series, that this now completely throws out the window? Are they going to try and, like, everything has to be connected type shit? You know what I'm saying? So we're going to have, we're just going to hit the reset button. Crystal Lake's going to be the starting point of it. And then from there you have movies, you have comics, you have video games, you have whatever the hell it is. Merchandise. I mean, it just, I know that Jason is he's always been under a big label, Paramount. You know, they were kind of like the distributors of the film. So it's not like he's never been in the spotlight of a big corporation or a big studio. But he's always never felt like he's that type of character. Does that make sense? You know, like it's always kind of teetering in this underground B movie type thing, but also, I don't know. It's,
you know, to me, if they're going to redo, like if they're going to start fresh and this series is going to be like the groundwork, the fact that they're creating a universe, to me, that sounds like they're trying to make more than just a story about a killer that is murdering teenagers at a camp. Jason comes back from the dead, even. And if they're redoing it, then obviously he's not going to come back from the dead, you know, right in the beginning. He'll probably, you know, eventually get killed at some point, and maybe they'll follow the same scheme. But to me, if you're making a universe, you have to follow more than one character. So are we going to follow different survivors? Are there going to be people who go crazy at the camp? Maybe something happens at the camp and a bunch of people die. And maybe there are several killers. It could be one of those things where somebody poses as Jason, like in the original films.
See,
but I'm torn on that.
But that also sounds like some corporate thought. Like ideas on how you would create this universe, because the other thing that kind of came into my head as you were saying that was the series. So you introduced that supernatural aspect of it, where in the series they were always looking for these weird artifacts and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with Jason himself, even though they were planning on trying to tie that in at the end. I still felt like they should have done that. Just, I mean, what the fucking harm would that have done? To throw in the hockey mask or something like that, you know what I mean? Just as a, like, oh, here's an artifact. Ugh. But I guess then that also kind of adds some questions about the mask and how the hell, I don't know. There's a whole lot to it. I mean, if you think about it, the mask, it would have had to have been the one that, Tommy had in part 6 to be the relic or whatever that has the witchcraft, but he didn't even put it on. He just set it beside him. So I don't know. There's a lot of that's plot holes. Doesn't matter. Doesn't fucking matter. It didn't happen. Anyway, I want to be excited about this. You know, I mean, they're basically saying, hey, we're gonna give you some more Jason, and I think where my concern lies is like when the MonsterVerse thing. Okay, I'm gonna use that as an example since that seems to be the the best example I can think of in regards to how this works. And I'm even going to go back to the Dark Universe. Okay, so when Universal decided they were going to do this Dark Universe thing starting with their Mummy movie, they had started this from the beginning. Like, that was their plan. We're going to do this Mummy movie, and then we're going to do this movie, and then we're going to do that movie, and we've got all these actors and everybody lined up for this sprawling story of all these classic movie monsters. But we haven't had a camera roll once. And we already had tried to make this happen before, and it failed. We tried again, and it failed. So we're going to do it. We're going to do it again. And then now, of course, it's the name of some theme park or section of their theme park. Fair enough. They got use out of it. With the MonsterVerse, they didn't start like that. It's like they did the Godzilla movie in 2014. Then it was just like, if we could maybe do this. And then it was just like, well, now we're going to do this Kong movie over here. And you start to be like, oh, okay. And it wasn't immediate. They weren't saying, oh, yeah, this is going to happen like this. It was like, yeah, we're going to do a Kong movie too. And it's like, from the same people who did Godzilla? Yeah. And then you just start putting the pieces together in your head, but they didn't say it.
Yeah.
And it was after the fact, they were just like, by the way, we're actually going to combine them. And it's like, you get excited because they figured it out. They weren't jumping the gun about what they were planning on doing. They probably had this plan from the start, but they were just like, well, let's make sure we can do it before we actually say anything and then get everybody's hopes up. Thank you. Here, you've immediately said, Jason Universe, woo! But what is that? Like I said, games, movies, merch, but what is that?
Now, I just thought of something. Just kind of popped into my head. Now, the Monarch series on Apple TV, that did a lot of time jumping. It showed us the past, and then it showed us present day. Mm-hmm. Now, if they wanted to do a Jason universe that sort of followed the whole multiple stories aspect, this series coming out is about the beginning. So it's about Jason as a kid, possibly about his mother. We follow all of that. Let's say they want to do another series or they want to do a movie. At that point, what I could see them doing, we do the series that talks about Jason's beginning. You turn that into a movie. You do a movie, maybe do 2 movies that show Jason become the killer that he is and start committing his killings. Then let's say they want to do another movie or a series. Let's say they want to do another series. We do a time jump to present day. Camp Crystal Lake is kind of like in the Never Hike Alone series. It's a spot on a map that nobody knows about because they've let the camp go because bad things happen there. But kids still go. They still end up missing. So we do a time jump, and maybe it follows someone who's introduced. Maybe it follows someone who's introduced in one of these possible movies that they're doing, who is looking for answers. So all these years later, and I mean years later, they are looking for Camp Crystal Lake because people that they knew went missing there. And so we get back into an older version of Jason and an older timeline. But it's all still part of that same universe. It's just from another angle. Someone else is coming in trying to find answers. And if you go back and you watch, this series that they're doing now and the movies that they might make, you go back and you watch those, you know what happened there. You know why the camp is closed. And this series, this other series that they could possibly do is picking up on that. Mm-hmm. That could be something that they could do. I would feel like that would sort of create a universe in a sense. You're doing some time jumps and things. But to me, that's like one of the only ways that I could see them making it work. Unless they go like way out in left field and they make it some big supernatural thing. And, maybe they go off the hockey mask thing. Maybe they do something where somebody finds Jason's mask and they put it on and it possesses them. And it possesses them to lead the mask back to Jason's body. I mean,
there's aspects to that as I'm hearing you kind of describe it that I could see maybe the thinking, because if you really focus on each entry, we've talked about this before, how they're all unique in their own ways. They'll have some spin to the franchise that they're kind of adding, some new piece of lore that maybe we didn't know. If you take what you already know and then kind of use that as your clay, I guess, to kind of mold this new narrative on how the story's going to go, because we've talked about it before. There are plot holes that don't make any sense in the Friday the 13th. Like, if he died as a kid, how the fuck is he alive in part 2? Like, that's start number 1. How the fuck did he even come to life? So we have that question mark. Then you cut to other things like, how did he come back to life? Was his mom a witch? Various things like that. So play with that and kind of craft your story. Who's that guy in Jason Goes to Hell? The
voodoo guy.
Yeah, who's been hunting Jason all this time, and it's like, well, where were you this whole time?
Now, didn't you say he's getting a series? There was talks about that.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's
maybe that's part of their universe thing. Maybe maybe he finds out. Maybe there's something about Camp Crystal Lake. Maybe that's how Jason came back. Maybe it's sort of like the whole Pet Cemetery aesthetic. Maybe there's something there where his body was found. Maybe some hermit living out in the woods found his body and buried him.
I mean, as I'm thinking about this, because talking through it's helping a little bit. It's softening the blow. If that's their plan, is to take all the stuff that we already know and try to weave it together in a more cohesive story, I'm in. You want to throw some wrinkles in there? Sure. Like, I don't want it just to be retold to me with a brand new package. If you can take the things we do know and we could be like, yeah, I know that thing, but then you throw in a wrinkle or you throw in a twist, so it's its own new universe, if you will, sure, I'd kind of be down for that. But I still got my qualms because I don't know what it is, man. It just sounds so fucking Disney corporate, and Jason is not that.
Now, how would you feel, though, if they did go in the direction, like, let's say they do all that, and we see from the beginning, but let's say they also would decide to do, like, a modern day, somebody's going back to, like, an abandoned Camp Crystal Lake. How would you feel in that regard? Because I personally, I think that would be kind of cool, just because the fan film Never Hike Alone, that's like the whole aesthetic. The guy, it's about a vlogger who is exploring, and he happens to come across Camp Crystal Lake while he's going through some uncharted territory, and he flat out says, he's like, I've heard about this place. Apparently, like, a lot of bad stuff happened here back in the 60s and the 70s, and they closed it down.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be okay with, like, 2 different cohesive stories that are taking place at different times, especially if they do it in a way where the things that happened in the past do correlate with future events that happen in the series. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against any of this as long as it's good. Tell me a solid story. Make me give a damn. Because I have said it 100 times before, I still feel like a focus on Pamela is your best bet.
Yeah.
And how you tell that story. Do not make her evil. Do not make her vicious. You make her sympathetic as humanly possible, so that when she snaps, you are on her side. Like, you cannot condone what she's doing, but you understand why she's doing it. Like, what drove her to this point.
Yeah.
And with that, I feel like you have sympathy for Jason. You can try to understand where he's at, because this is actually where we were discussing, Katrina and I, how this seems to work. So if you find a way, if you make us feel sympathy for her, you make us have sympathy for Jason. At the end of the day, once you go to these other places, if you drive the point home that they have just had enough, or they're punishing those because she is getting her revenge on the people who allowed her son to die. But then if he's still alive, because we even talked about that, like, how would that work? Well, maybe he gets washed downstream, takes him a minute to kind of come back, but she's already snapped at that point, and then he witnesses his mom dying. So when that happens, now he's in a bad spot. He's like, oh shit, they killed my mom. So now he's having to deal with that. That fucks up his head. So revenge for mommy makes sense.
Now, didn't they, because that is one thing about the remake that I think I remember actually being a fan of. They actually kind of show that Jason saw his mom die.
Yeah, that was pretty much like the opening sequence was kind of a remake of that original scene from the first
last
one.
parts there.
But then with the boy watching in the bushes or whatever.
Yeah. And, I think if they're going to follow Pamela, don't give us hints that she's like unstable. Make her a person who has stability. Make her a person who's been hurt. Show her as someone who has overcome a lot, someone who should have snapped years ago because of what they went through.
Yeah, that's what I want 100%. Like, no mental issues. Her shit is being, like, her life has just been terrible. Like, at every fucking turn, everything just seems to go wrong, but she thrives, she survives, she continues on. And again, Jason is her light. I want to see the interactions with her. And yeah, do mongoloid makeup, whatever the hell you want to do it. But I think that would be tricky too. Try to find a way to make it kind of disturbing, but also like you can't look away from it. You know what I mean? Like, you can see what she sees. You'd have to find like a makeup artist who could figure out a way to teeter that line to creepy and also sympathetic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I will say this. You know what I would honestly do? Instead of making Jason born like that, maybe make some kind of rare condition the doctors have never heard of, so that she watches her precious little baby turn into this deformed child that people persecute, but show that when she still looks at him, she still sees that little baby that she's always had. I feel like her seeing him change and her understanding that, and like that breaking her heart, but her maybe there's a scene where she looks into his eyes and it's when he's got like the marks and everything on him, her looking into his eyes and just smiling, and then it cutting, the camera cutting to her and her saying, maybe it's even just a thought of, this is my beautiful baby boy. He's always going to be my beautiful baby boy. And then when it cuts back, you're understanding that you're seeing from her point of view, and none of that's there. He just looks like a healthy child. I think that would, I think that would add like a layer of depth to it from her perspective. Like, even though the world saw him for a freak because he had deformities that he could not control, she still saw him as that little baby that was perfect. And
that's why I feel like him being born with a deformity would actually work better, because that's
true.
Immediately going to be everybody's first things. Like, look at this freak, look at this monster. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't see him the way everybody else sees him. She sees her beautiful baby boy, and he is perfect, and he is her world.
And you could probably do it the best of both worlds. When he's born, maybe the deformity's not as bad. It's there.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just something that's starting to develop really bad. And then as he gets bigger, so the doctors already know, like, there's something wrong with this child. No, there's nothing wrong with my child. My child's perfect.
I would hope, and I know it would get a little tricky, but there would have to be some medical condition, some genuine fucking medical condition you could point to and be like, that could cause this deformity, or whatever it may be. It could be a combination of things, whatever. Do the research on it. Figure it out. Figure out whatever it needs to be. But I would love to see child Jason, like, long term, sympathize. Like, get to know that child so that when he does, quote unquote, drown, like, it punches you in the gut so hard. Like, that whole scene would have to be played just so. Because if you do not stick the landing there, you ruin the whole thing. Because that's what you're building to.
Yeah.
And there's great ideas here. There's great content that could be made. I really hope they understand that you have an opportunity, if this is your plan, to recraft this universe, to remake it or whatever. You have a chance to step it up. Because you have great ideas. They've just not been executed well because we're in this proto-slasher genre where we were trying to figure it all out, and we're just like, kids, sex, naked, kill.
Yep.
There we go.
I would even, like, I was just thinking, you talking about making him sympathetic as a child. When he's, I forget what it is. Isn't the sounds you hear when Jason's coming,
yeah.
Isn't he basically saying kill, 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 mom, basically? Mm-hmm. I just thought of this. Make Jason nonverbal for the most part, but he loves his mom. Like, I see him as a very shy, bashful kid that wants to hide behind his mom. Make him nonverbal, but make him be able to say, ma, like mom, like mama and stuff like that. But he loves his mom so much. What if the kill was originally kiss, and he would be giving his mom kisses and going kiss, 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 mom, mom, mom.
Love that. I love that because it'll be like ma, ma, ma.
Yeah, and it like you see it as a place of innocence at first, but then after she's gone, he understands what killing is at that point, and maybe you even hear him because obviously he has his mom's head. So imagine seeing a younger Jason take his mother's head, and he doesn't understand fully that his mom is gone, but it starts out as him saying kiss, 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 mama, and then he realizes that they killed his mom, and you hear him change the word kiss to kill ma, and then we go from something loving like kiss mom, to him understanding and it changing over to kill.
Yeah.
I feel like that would punch me in the gut right there.
That would have to be done very delicately because I could see where people are like, oh my God, I can't believe the but done just right, delicate. Because I love that. I love the idea, just subtle, but could mean so much more in the long run.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. Because again, you don't have to. The wrong filmmaker would be like, well, we got to make this a big moment. We got to make this a big moment. We got to really focus in on it. It's like, no, subtle. I mean, it could just be a throwaway little bit that you're not really focused on when you first see it, and then you'll get the context of it later on.
Yeah.
Play it soft and subtle, man. That would just pay off.
I can just see him like cupping her head in his lap and just, rubbing her hair lovingly. And it doesn't have to be him saying it real loud, but him trying to say like I said, kiss mom. And he's crying, and then it shifts over. And it doesn't even have to be sinister. He could be like a kid who's just like, they killed my mom. But it could be him saying it in his own way. But you do it just right and just subtle enough. Don't overdo it. Do it just subtle enough. And if you hear that change in him when he says it, it'd break your heart.
Yeah,
sorry, I interrupted you. You were saying something.
No,
I'm sorry.
I'm still playing with this idea in my head and just figuring out how to work it out. I don't know. There's a solid idea there. If done, played just right, it could add so many layers to the whole thing. And I guess I'm trying to figure out like what his condition, because this is a hell of a condition if you think about it. Because what condition could he have that would make him mute or unable to really speak? But think about that. Kiss and ma, maybe those are the only things that he was ever able to vocalize. Like she had been talking to him and trying to see if, because, the doctors could be like, well, he'll never be able to communicate. He'll never be able to speak. And she's like, no, my boy will speak. And then maybe mom was one of the things she was trying to get him to say. And she just repeated over and over, ma, mom. And then eventually, ma comes out. But kiss, ma, or whatever, those two things could be the only things that maybe he was ever able to vocalize. She tried other things. They just weren't happening. Yeah. But for whatever reason, those are the things that clicked.
Now, see, I just looked something up from Friday the 13th fandom. It's a fan website. And they would have to change this because they say that a lot of his... I'm just going to read this. And They would have to change this around because this is how these people view Pamela. And I don't think this is necessarily how Pamela was because of her relationship with Jason. So it says, born on June 13th, 1946, Jason Voorhees was born with severe facial deformities, hydrocephalus, an abnormally large head, and mental disabilities. Due to the abuse inflicted by his monstrous mother, Pamela Voorhees, and I don't agree with that either, he was also hydrocephalic, making him physically deformed. Now, I could picture all of this happening because, let's put it this way, I could see Pamela being in a domestic abuse kind of relationship.
100%.
And I could see her getting beat within an inch of her life. And the beating that she takes, maybe the guy that got her pregnant didn't want a kid. So he is trying to kill the kid by hitting her in the stomach. I know that sounds awful, but there is a realism to that. It's terrible, but it is something that I feel like would happen in this sort of circumstance with Pamela. And let's say that is what causes... Let's say Jason's life was ruined before he was even born.
Yeah.
All of that caused problems. Maybe it caused circulation to get cut off a little bit to him. Maybe it caused his brain to develop in the wrong way. There's a way to do it. I mean, there's kids that are, born deformed every day, and a mother being beaten and all of these things could lead to something like that.
Yeah,
But
he would definitely have to have more than just one deformity.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at this disease here, and oh yeah, the head, 100%. That's his noggin. But the face, like, it doesn't do anything to the face. It's just more of a head growth.
Let's look at it. Let's look at it this way. I think I've got something. Pamela had her son. You know, even if they changed the story around, let's say Jason was born in the 60s instead of the 40s. Let's just say that, right? So let's say that they changed that.
We're gonna have to change that eventually anyway.
Yeah, let's change that bit around, right? And let's say that Pamela did get beaten so bad that they had to do an emergency. Let's say she was close to popping. Let's say she was 7-8 months. Let's just say that. At that point in time, if she were to get beaten so badly, parts of Jason's body could get broken in her stomach. So let's say that they cut him out of her, and they have to rush this baby off to surgery. And medical science can only go so far. Let's say the poor kid was born with a condition anyways, and they had to perform things on him, and it caused scarring, it caused parts of his condition to worsen. In a way, that would almost make you, to me, that would make you sympathize with him. Like, your kid's a monster. Well, you don't know what my kid's been through.
Mm-hmm.
He could have a condition and who knows? Maybe that could be something that they find out. Maybe they do an ultrasound and something looks off in the ultrasound, and the doctors say that they think he might be born with a certain condition, and maybe the father thinks it's a waste, that he thinks his kid is going to be a freak, and Pamela, she's so in love with her son that's not even born yet that she doesn't care, and so that leads to everything. And I mean, I don't know. I think that could work.
Yeah.
But, man.
There's a lot of ideas I'm sure we could go. I mean, because we've rambled on about our ideas, but
if they need writers, come get us.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because I mean, I feel like there's so many great ideas that could be done, and my concern, not that I'm king god of all the things Jason, like, I know better than anybody, but we've seen how some of these shifts, when creators get involved and they don't quite understand the material, they're just like, this is what people like. They're missing the bigger picture. And I'm afraid all we're going to get is, hey, look, it's Jason. Look, he's killing some kids who are doing some naughty things. And we're going to continue to make those over-the-top, you're doing sex and drugs in the forest. You're going to die references. And we're like, yeah, we got it. We understand the fucking joke. We've done that.
I almost wish we could film, like you and I could film a little, it'd be amazing to film like just a little scene. It could be like a flashback showing Jason do the whole kiss mom, doing that scene, and then fast forwarding to when his mom gets killed and then filming his reaction then. I would love to just film that little tidbit just to see that play out, because I don't know if they would go with that angle, but it would be cool to see that angle.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I could go on and just, like, again, I want people to understand, I'm hesitant to be excited. Like, I want to be, because, again, this is fucking Jason, and I'm so excited that we're finally going to get some Jason content. I was kind of looking forward to the Crystal Lake show, despite any kind of reservations, because it was Jason. I want it to be good. That's all I'm asking for. I don't give a shit what it is. I just want something good that I can watch and then be like, oh, man, that was great. I'm so glad we got that.
Right? You want the character that you love to be given his due. You want him to have justice and to be represented in a way that is going to be good, even if it's different. And I get that.
Great example that I've brought up on the show many times. Leatherface. This is a character dying to be done proper. And it is yet to happen, in my opinion, outside of the first 2 or 3 films. And that's as far as I'm going to go. The remakes we've talked about, yeah, but they did their own thing.
Yeah.
Every other movie since has tried to latch on to the original, and they're just like, we have to hang on. No, do something new.
I'm going to say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I would love a change of location because I would love to see people trying to survive, getting away from Leatherface and being in a swamp where they have to worry about gators. I think just a bayou Leatherface, there's something about that just sounds... I don't know. There's just something about that just... Bayou cannibals.
Yeah.
It could be really good or really bad, but I don't know. I just... I feel like it would be interesting to see.
Sure.
I have to ask real quick, because you said you and Katrina talked about Nightmare on Elm Street. I know we're talking about Jason, but I need to hear what happened with this conversation.
No, all these things that when we were kind of discussing them and their ideas, their concepts, I think we pretty much had this conversation before, but she brought up how the moment they turned Freddy into a pedophile in the remake, you ruin the entire thing. Like we've discussed that ad nauseum here because you had an opportunity to keep us on board with your villain, and we would have been behind him more than we ever were if he was wrongfully accused. But you decided to go the darker route and make him less sympathetic to the point where when you have Robert Englund and Jackie Earl Haley, I'll take Robert Englund all day long because he didn't diddle kids, you know? It's that simple. His version did not do that, or at least that is what we have been told. He just killed them. Even
Robert Englund has said before, Wes Craven's original plan was going to make him out to be that, but then some things happened in reality, and Wes Craven went, no. And yes, it might be hinted at, but even though it's hinted at, it's never said. It's like, okay, I can live with it maybe being hinted at that Freddy might have enjoyed what he was doing a little too much, but at least they never said it.
Sure, yeah, no. And
it's like a weird form of denial.
But it works, though. We never heard he was doing sexual things with kids. All we knew is he killed kids. Not saying that's great, but for whatever reason, there's a difference, man. There really is. It's fucking weird.
You hated him for a different reason.
Yeah. But you also never felt there was something about his version that you were never like, ew. It was just like, he's a bad guy, but he's kind of funny. I could be on board with him. The Jackie Earl Haley one, the moment you got that information, is like, nope, I'm out, dude. I'm out. I can't. I'm not.
And it's no offense to Jackie Earl Haley either.
No. He did fine.
He did great playing his version of Freddy, but his version of Freddy wasn't charming. As weird as it sounds,
you're right, though.
Robert Englund made Freddy charming, and you're like, I don't want to like this guy. This guy's awful. But you like him.
You can't help it. Yeah, that's
Jackie Earl Haley's version, the writing's just kind of lazy with his version, and
like I said, we've stated that before. They dropped the ball hard.
Yeah.
Because the story that they were aiming toward, that's the story I wanted, man. Because if you tried to tell me, like if they had done, oh yeah, he was secretly, taking kids down into his cellar or whatever, and then you found out, no, this was all a lie. It was some other guy. Fred Krueger was completely innocent, and you slaughtered an innocent man because why? Because someone told you this or you believed it? I mean, the implications of that story alone.
Yeah.
I mean, goddamn. We've seen this time and again, and they so fucking dropped the ball.
Plus, that movie did something that I also really appreciated, and I'll say that now. I love the whole thought of the micro naps, sleeping while you're awake, and him being able to, like, cross over in a sense, and affect the real world. I thought that was cool.
And it made a lot of sense to every little thing we've seen in some of the other movies, where it could just be like those little, I'm awake now, I'm awake. You just kind of nod it off for a second,
Yeah.
But
man.
I don't know. I don't really have much more to say about this. Again, I don't want people to think I'm complaining. I want to be excited. I'm reserved right now in my judgments because I don't know what it's going to be. Yeah. And I'm hoping for the best, but I don't know.
And it's one of those things when it does finally come out and we see what their plan is, that will be another conversation that we're able to have.
Yeah.
And we clearly have thoughts and opinions on what we would like to see. That doesn't mean that will happen.
No.
I still say that you and I should just get some funding and just make your idea. We should totally we should do that.
It's a solid idea, man. Or at least I think so. I mean, all we got to do is change some names. If we can't do it legally, we can do it in some way. It's still the same story. Nothing's going to change as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, you can just kind of change around. You can still say, yeah, this is a story about a guy that grew up and killed a bunch of people at a camp. I mean, you can still make it happen. But yeah, no, I hope that I feel like there's some horror characters that you can sympathize with. You don't have to appreciate their actions or, you don't have to think what they're doing is right. But if you have a better understanding, I think that makes some characters redeemable.
Sure.
And I know we've talked about that before too, characters that are redeemable. We talked about Jason, and it seems like Jason just wants to be left alone.
I mean, if I was having this conversation about making Jason sympathetic, but we were talking about Art the Clown, that's wrong. Art's not sympathetic. There's no way he's going to be sympathetic. He's just a lunatic. So, you see, Jason is a character that this works for. It's not going to work for every character.
Yeah.
So, that's the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah, Jason, you can sympathize. Candyman, I feel like he's somebody you sympathize with. I don't even think the Cenobites are really characters that you can't sympathize with. They're just doing a job, basically.
Yeah. They got roped into it because they were following forbidden fruit.
And then you've got some characters that you just can't have sympathy for.
And that's fine.
It's
good to have a variety.
Yeah, it makes for a good villain. But I agree with you. I'm excited for new Jason content. I am a Jason fan. I know that you're the hardcore fan compared to me because you know way more about Friday the 13th than I do. I enjoy it for what it is. Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, is what I hardcore look into. But I am excited for this series. I was excited when we heard about it. I was a little because I was like, come on. They just announced this, and we just talked about how you had a great idea for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm not going to form an opinion. I hope that it will be something that is worthwhile. So
yeah, hope.
But I don't have anything else either. So if you want to tell all those wonderful folks where to find us.
Ramblers, how do you feel about the Jason universe? Are you excited? Are you upset? Are you worried? Kind of indifferent? Let us know on social media at Horror Ramblings, or you can send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. Join our Facebook group or join us on Discord. Find us on Instagram. And if you want, you can head on over to patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions and chuck us a buck if you will. Give us a 5-star app in your favorite, or 5-star review on your favorite podcasting app. And tell your friends to do the same as well. Look on Spotify to see if we posted up any questions and polls. Let us know what you think. And finally, you can find everything over at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes down below.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.